Well, welcome to Chapter 3 of the Glastron redo. We're finally going to get to the point that you've all been waiting for. I know I've been waiting for it. We're going to start fiberglassing and really putting this thing back together. So we're going to start by using this 40 grit sandpaper on our little DA, and we're going to round off these edges so we don't have any hard corners to try to glass around. We'll blow out that dust and then get this cleaned up and start glassing it in. Alright, all of our surfaces are wiped clean. The edges are rounded. Not in that order. Now we have our first piece of cloth that I've cut. I'm going to get some final trimming done on this. The center stringer's 5 inches tall. I cut a piece. I bought a roll, first off, that's 4 feet wide. And instead of trying to make long pieces and unroll it all the way and all this, I just cut 16 inches off of the 4-foot roll, which will be our first layer for our first stringer. Just about like this. So now I'm going to make, which gives us about 2.5, 3 inches of coverage on the floor, as you can see. I'm going to trim up this front area. I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of insight too. I've never actually even used 1708. I've always just been told to use just the random, that wild crazy cloth, which this stuff seems crazy better. So much better than the other stuff. I'm excited about this because I think it'll just work better. So I'm going to start something about like that. That way this can fold down flat in there. All nice. It's probably going to need a little more off each side. Let's go for about an inch. I ordered this cloth off Amazon. The reviews on it were basically good for what you're paying for. Some of the people on there said it was kind of thin, but they liked that because it made it easier to work. And if you're going to do double layers anyway, it just kind of makes it work out. But I know working with the chopped mat, I guess is the stuff I've used before, that it is, I mean, it's a mess. You start cutting on that stuff, it just tears apart and you've got that everywhere. So with this stuff, I don't think that's going to be as much of an issue. And I just need to finally get this boat back in one piece again. So I'm going to go mix up some resin and come back and start prepping all this stuff. I'll take this piece with me and I'll possibly wet it in the shop. I'll take this debris off. You'll never be debris free completely. All right, everybody. Here's the moment of truth. Let's see if I can handle this easily. I'm going to have to handle it eventually. I just want to remind everyone up front, I'm not teaching you how to do this. I am showing you what I'm doing. The reason why I say that is because I'm not an expert with fiberglass, but I have worked this stuff. I've done polyester resin before, which is different, but similar. And if you want any solid tips on how to do specific fiberglassing things, I recommend a guy named Andy on, I think his channel is Boatworks Today. The guy seems to really know what he's doing. I watched a lot of his stuff. He'd be a better place to look for if you have questions on how to do a lot of this. I'm just going to share with you, as I do, a real world scenario on how it looks for a regular guy doing this stuff. I'm using a foam roller, and I don't even know if that's going to work yet or not. I haven't found information that shows if that's a good thing or not. I've read some information saying that some epoxies will break down the foam. If that's the case, we'll find out, and we won't use the roller anymore, and maybe we'll have some ugly work to fix up here in the front, but it won't be somewhere where we'll see it. That's kind of a fun thing about building a boat. You start down deep in the middle of it, and you work your way out. So your later work, once you're kind of practiced, is the stuff you see. You don't see the stuff in the beginning. It's all covered up by your later work. My roller's getting dirty because my boat's not as perfectly spotless clean as we'd really like for it to be. So that's something to think about. Easy on the criticisms. I mixed up 20 pumps of resin per 20 pumps of hardener per the instructions. I'm wetting down this surface first. I'm going to take a length check here. That's going to run back down. It's going to run back, ow, run back to about right here. Yeah, and I went to the store to buy tools to apply this stuff that I didn't have. So I went to the store yesterday to buy all this stuff because I thought I had it. I got to thinking about, well, what material do I want to use? Do I want to use, before I always just use really cheap paintbrushes. And they came apart during the project and added extra strands for you. There's a little piece of foam that came off. Okay, try to do this without making a big mess. We like to avoid big messes. I'm going to wet the underside of this. I'm going to still use my foam roller. Work my resin down in there real good. As you'll notice, I'm doing this on another part of my project. That's because I have no other good place to do it. I'd be doing this on the ground outside. So if this looks like a big mistake, well, all I have to do is sand it after it sets, and I can work that part again. So I don't think it's any big deal. This piece is 4 feet long. And like I said, I did 20 pumps, and we'll find out if that was a good choice or not here in just a minute. How much of this is just getting soaked up by my brush, by the good old roller. Hopefully not all of it. Everything I read and see is not to make this too dry. When I first learned how to do all this stuff from someone who I believe taught me a lot of bad information, they were very specific about doing the opposite. They said, which yet again, they were wrong about most of what they told me, but about too much resin makes it brittle. But that might have been a more specific polyester thing, or I see how both of them make sense. Okay, let's take our wetted piece. It's wetted through a little bit, but not terrible. Get all those there wrinkles out. Push that up into position. Keep this straight. Pull this out tight. About like that. Scientifically hold it out. See what you're working with. Man, this stuff seems so much better than just the good old-fashioned matte stuff that I've used in the past. I think I'll be happy with this. I'll just tell you right now, this is going to take practice. It'll take me practice. I know this does not look wonderful. I know that, it doesn't. But it's my first one I've done in a really long time. And I've got all kinds of air bubbles that I'm going to need to work out here. And my finished product might end up with a fair number of air bubbles. I hope not. One thing about this, in comparison to the strand mat, is the strand mat gives so much. It works against you and for you. It doesn't hold the shape at all once you get it wet, so you can just kind of mold it into any piece you need. This stuff holds its shape enough so you can kind of tell, can sort of show problems. But I think this stuff's a lot stronger. It looks like it will be. Keep that stuff down, get the air bubbles out. I've got some good folds here that I should have probably cut. I might even go get my scissors out and cut some of those spots that I don't like right now so I can fold them over each other. Take my already ruined scissors here. I say ruined, they still work. They're just already all covered in fiberglass stuff. I'm going to cut these big ones that are just going to be big air bubbles if I don't. I can fold them over themselves or over each other. And this stuff just won't hardly cut. What's the deal? Having a chew on it. There we go. Set those to the side so they can fiberglass themselves to the project. That stuff just looks so dry right there. Is it? Doesn't look that way back there. It looks clear. This looks dry up here. Looks better. Go through the old pouring method. I'm going to try to force resin into what looks like those dry areas. So it all looks opaque and not so white. And it looks stretched on this side. It's folded over on the other. I'll probably figure that out later as to why it looks that way. It looks like a fair number of air bubbles back there. Using my work gloves here. Stuff's starting to feel warm, like it's starting to take off. I haven't used my roller yet. I know I'm going to need to. Need to be doing that right now. Get all these air bubbles out. For a good lamination. So yeah, if my fiberglass doesn't turn out wonderful and perfect, I'll bet you those guys online who's do, I'll bet it didn't the first time that they did it, using a new product or whatever. I just happen to be sharing with you guys my first time doing fiberglass at all in over a decade. And I'm using epoxy resin for the first time, and 1708 for the first time, and a roller applicator for the first time. So I'm making some pretty solid excuses as to why mine's not going to look great. But I'm also showing you that this will still end up being a dependable, safe boat. It's not going to creak and pop and come apart. It's going to work. It's going to work good. It's going to work great. Man, this stuff is so much better, it seems like, than that matte. If I'm saying that right, the strand mat. This stuff just it comes off on you as much as it goes down on the project. While I might have a few little air bubbles here, man, you should take apart an original boat and see how many air bubbles they had. Those things were covered in them. They practically threw this stuff over the parts and then zipped the floor down and then moved on to the next boat. And those old boats lasted quite a while. Not as long as they would if they did it right, but it still lasted a long time. I think I'm going to go change my gloves and start using the roller and see how I like it. See if I just go back to using my hands again. I need to probably be continuously working this until it sets up, until it's pretty set up. Yay, don't knock over my cup. Okay, got my new gloves on. Ready to be a doctor. Here's my roller. I have soaking in paint thinner, so it doesn't harden and become a one-time use deal. Oh man, these work great. This is getting all that air out of there. Right, nice. Need to stop being so vigorous about it. Just let it roll. And try to remember to roll from the middle out. I end up with some good solid lamination here. Don't just push my air bubbles around in a big old circle. Also going to go ahead and cut right here where I have this high spot. Just like that. As much as anyone would hate to do this wrong and end up with a bunch of air bubbles and all that stuff, if you do, if you make a lot of shortcuts and you do a really sloppy job, you'll still end up with a boat that you can use for several years. You'll end up doing this all again. That's why I'm here. I did a bad job before. I still enjoy my boat. That's part of the problem. You can do a bad enough job that it'll still work and get you by. Let you think you did an okay job when you really didn't. So you don't really want to do that. But if you do, it's not like your boat breaks in half. It just rots. Mine never really made noises or popped or creaked, or I never had any fiberglass come loose, even though I had a lot of air bubbles in it. I also just didn't know that you were supposed to spend a lot of time working every part. Just didn't know. But with me, you'll get to watch an amateur in real time work this first piece of fiberglass. The rest of this I might share on time lapse, and you can just kind of follow along for fun, so you can sit there with your snack, be comfortable, and watch it fairly quickly, because this will probably take a long time, really. Is that setting up in there? Oh, hell yeah, it is. It's smoking. And stuff's setting up. This is the slow set stuff, and it's 80 degrees out here, if you'd like to know. So, as you can see, it sets up. Keep you warm on a hot day. Having it set up there. This first piece I did, 16 inches wide by the length of the roll which is 4 feet. I might do my next piece 20 and fold it over this. Set it over this where then it sticks out an extra few inches on each side there. Try to work all those air bubbles out. I watched some people on YouTube do this, and they were so good at it that they made all this stuff look easy. They made it look like anyone can just roll out air bubbles. But their prep work was done real well. So they had less places for air bubbles, probably. And they just were probably really good at it. They probably wetted their material just right. Laid it down just right. Probably did all of it just right. I mixed that stuff for about 4 minutes. Mixed it pretty vigorous, like. And it hardened in the cup, and it was smoking. I hope the hardener doesn't tend to settle to the bottom of the cup or something. Stuff seems to roll the air out pretty well. A tidal wave of air. Oh yeah. Coming out the back there. This piece looking pretty good. For me. Probably the most similar thing to watching paint dry. Maybe somewhat interesting. You have to manage it while you watch it dry. It makes you appreciate watching paint dry because it does all the work. It does all the work all by itself. I like it. And as long as it's tacky to the surface, you can add the second layer. Take this out. Try to make the stick not a one-time use. All the rest of this stuff is used up. There we go. We can save our stick. Our roller itself. Just barely got my hair on my arm. Go for a fresh pair of gloves again. Get my hands nice and dry so I can put the next pair of gloves on. So you get the gist of it. I'm going to let that take off and get tacky, and I'm going to throw a second layer on it, and y'all can follow along on time lapse. That'll be a little more exciting. Hey everybody, taking you off time lapse now. I've done a little bit of cleaning up. Here's the progress and the mess we've made. I've glassed the center stringer. Everything on the center stringer has at least 2 layers of 1708 with our 5:1 epoxy. Go for a spin here. You see all my footprints in the way there. We're going to end up with some cleanup prep work to do before we do the floor. We're going to leave the mess here while we do the other stringers because it's going to just keep getting the same kind of mess. As long as each stringer is prepped and ready to be glassed, we ought to be good. But this was kind of a good 4-hour chore, just doing the center stringer. It's about 5 inches tall, 12, 13, 11 something feet long. Yeah, longer than 8 feet with the multi-layers and all that. Kind of taking my time, make sure I do it right. We have some air bubbles, but it's really nothing to worry about, I don't think. And I mean, I've done a lot worse work that's held up. So it's not beautiful, but this is a practical, real world experience of how this goes. So now we're sitting back and admiring it and checking it out. And tomorrow I'll hit it hard and I'll keep going. I'll try to glass in as many stringers as I can tomorrow. Maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe the remaining 4. I don't know yet, but we'll get that all going, and we'll get all of the stringers glassed in, and then we'll clean up all of our mess and all of our slag and all of our extra cloth that on the edges that didn't get glassed down and whatever. And then I'm going to do a total boat product that's a sealer primer. I'm going to do that under the floor, and then that will make it waterproof and make the entire underfloor part of the boat the, I guess, like water collection for the water that gets in the boat. And so yeah, so there we go. This should conclude, I'll go ahead and say this will conclude chapter 3, or no, yeah, chapter 3. I wanted to do all the stringers on this little section, but it's a lot of work, and this is what we ended up with. So this is my real-time progress. You can kind of see what we have going on back there. When you're not real good at this stuff, like me, and I'm okay at it, I think I'm going to do a good enough job to get it done, and we're going to be usable. We're going to be a safe, happy, friendly boat that lasts a long time and all those fun things. But it's going to be messy. I think when you get really good at it, and you watch the guys on YouTube that are like experts at fiberglass, a lot of what sets them apart is they're able to do this and make it look easy. So I can do it, and you can do it. It just might not look, when you get done, it might not look easy. I'll have more mess to clean up, and then we'll just clean up the mess. That'll be extra work, but we'll do it. And then we'll do all of our sealer primer stuff and get that going good, and then we'll get the floor piece cut, and we'll get the floor piece. I'll probably, no, I will do this. I'll paint the bottom side of the floor piece before I lay it down with the sealer primer, and then I'll put it down, and then we'll glass over it, and then we'll just keep on making progress. So thanks for watching. Thanks for coming to join us on this. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. That helps our channel a ton. Please like it if you like it. Share it if you want your friends to see it. And we'll catch you back on the next one. Thanks for watching.